All right, here we have a great question from Mr. Josh, a lovely community member. And he's asking, which methods do you find helpful to see past or ignore market noise? I've done self-isolation and I feel it screws me up if I disconnect too much. So in the context of this question, I'm guessing you're asking about like confounding or just confusing pieces of news or social media, stuff like that. Not necessarily like actual market noise, like in an indicator, like a signal to noise ratio. I just want to define terms here so that we're on the same page, but I believe that's what you're asking, because it sounds like if you're self-isolating, then that's the purpose of that, is to get away from external influences. Okay, yeah, so of course we all deal with this, myself included, right? And you get this from like the news, watching CNBC or watching like content like this. I mean, this you are getting my opinion on things or the way that I analyze things. But of course, we all have our very personal strategies and whatnot related to our personal preferences, which are all naturally going to be somewhat different, which is why doing like a full-on signals group is kind of difficult to do, to be honest with you. Anyways. Your question directly is, how do you see past that? How do you get past the market noise? Well, if self-isolation in your case is disconnecting you too much, how far are you going? How far are you going is the real question. Are you locking yourself in a dark room? Because the obvious answer is to, if you just want to remove it all, then you fucking remove it all. Obviously, you don't watch the news, you don't go on Twitter, especially crypto Twitter, and you don't watch YouTube videos, mine included. You want to separate yourself from that if you find it unvaluable, or if you just quite literally can't separate your own strategies from whatever the content is kind of talking about. Because again, people can have very similar strategies, or of course different strategies as well, and both be successful at the same time. That's the kind of the problem with it. So how do you see past that? Well, I'll tell you my answer pretty much for all of these questions. It's always the same, man. You have to be disciplined enough to always follow your plan, which I know that you have, because you're in the TA program and I speak with you rather frequently. And I know that you've actually gone through the rigmarole of setting out the trade checklist, the trade strategy checklist, which means that you've gone through, you've back tested that strategy, you've also forward tested it, and you know the statistics that come alongside of it as well. If you know that, then there's actually no reason why not to disconnect yourself from the news, because you should only be reliant on the statistics of your strategy, not on news pieces, which yes, can influence price action. Obviously, not every piece of news is completely irrelevant or just noise for that matter. There are some relevant things. The problem with news is that when you're listening to the news for your information, you're probably going to be one of the last people to know. My point is that when you're paying attention to the news people obviously know before you. And it's not like the news people just go on immediately breaking news, right? And present the case exactly as it happens. No, they have to get fed that story from someone else, because they don't obviously do the research themselves. They're just like a talking head piece. And that person who did the research, they obviously are getting it secondary as well, unless if they were literally the insider themselves, because that's probably the only way that you can really be truly reliant on news, is being like an insider, which is kind of illegal. So maybe not the best way to go about things. And so they're getting it from someone else. So it takes them time to synthesize the story and then get it out. So by the time that you're actually consuming the news yourself, you're way far down the list of God damn it, dogs. You're way far down the list of people that actually know. And it could be, days, weeks, whatever. So very, very likely the people who knew the news, sorry, bad alliteration right there, but you know what I mean. They likely knew way before, and they also made their decisions well before. And if they made their decisions well before, where does that show up? Not on the news, obviously. That shows up a lot later. But if they made their decisions before, aka they put their trades in, you're going to see it on price action. So it's probably the closest way that you can be to being an insider, by just being reliant on that. Yes, it's not going to be perfect. And yes, there are specific pieces of very relevant and new news which do matter. I'm not talking about that right now. But in essence, what I'm trying to say is that, hey man, it sounds like you're probably on the right path. And again, I know you, and I know that you're quite successful. So I don't think that you really have to be doing too much different things, man. To be quite honest with you, you're doing fucking well. You're doing really, really well. So just kind of meditate on that fact as well. And hopefully that was in some way helpful. But just realize you have good problems, sir. You have good problems to have. We always have problems. I can assure you of that. even after doing this for a very long time myself, I still have problems, sir. But they're better problems to be having, better than not being profitable, right? So hopefully that was helpful, man. And there you go.